Toad had traveled some miles, his horse and he was feeling drowsy in the hot sunshine when the horse stopped and began to nibble the grass, and Toad, waking up, just saved himself from falling over. He looked about him and found he was on a wide common. Near him stood a gypsy cavern, and beside it was a man sitting on an upturned bucket. A fire of sticks was burning nearby, and over the fire hung an iron pot, and from out of that pot came rich and varied smells. Toad was hungry. He looked over the gypsy carefully, wondering whether it would be easier to fight him or persuade him. So there he sat and sniffed and looked at the gypsy, and the gypsy sat and looked at him. Presently the gypsy remarked, "Want to sell that there horse of yours?" Toad was completely taken aback. Nevertheless, the gypsy's suggestion seemed to smooth the way toward the two things he wanted, money and breakfast. "What?" he said. "Me sell this beautiful young horse? Oh, no. Besides, I'm too fond of him. All the same, how much might you be willing to offer me?" The gypsy looked the horse over. "Shilling a leg," he said briefly and turned away. And a shilling is a British coin. "A shilling a leg?" cried Toad. "If you please, I must take a little time to work that out." He climbed down off his horse and did sums on his fingers, and at last he said, "A shilling a leg? Why, that comes to exactly 4 shillings. That is simply not enough." "Well," said the gypsy, "I'll tell you what I will do. I'll make it 5 shillings, and that's more than the animal's worth." Then Toad sat and pondered. He was keenly aware that he was hungry and penniless. At last he said firmly, "Look here, you give me 6 shillings and 6 pence and as much breakfast as I can eat. In return, I will hand over my horse." The gypsy grumbled, but in the end he counted out 6 shillings and 6 pence into Toad's open palm. Then he disappeared into the caravan and returned with a large iron plate. He tilted up the pot, and a stream of hot, rich stew gurgled onto the plate. Toad took the plate on his lap. He thought that he had never eaten so good a breakfast in all his life. When Toad had eaten as much stew as he possibly could, he got up and said good-bye to the gypsy and the horse. After receiving directions from the gypsy, he set forth on his travels again. As he tramped along, he thought of his adventures and how when things seemed at their worst, he had always found a way out. Toad's pride began to swell within him. "Ho, ho!" he said to himself. "What a clever Toad I am!" He got so puffed up with pride that he made up a song as he walked in praise of himself, and sang it at the top of his voice, though there was no one to hear it but him. "The world has held great heroes, as history books have showed, but never a name to go down to fame compared with that of Toad. The clever men at Oxford know all that there is to be knowed, but they none of them know one half as much as intelligent Mr. Toad." The animals sat in the ark and cried, their tears in torrents flowed. "Who was it said that land's ahead, encouraging Mr. Toad?" The army all saluted as they marched along the road. Was it the king or president? No, it was Mr. Toad. He sang as he walked and got more inflated every minute, but his pride was shortly to have a severe fall. After a while, Toad reached the main road, and there he saw a speck approaching him that turned into a dot and then into something very, very familiar. "This is the life again," said the excited Toad. "I will hail my brothers of the wheel, and they will give me a lift." He stepped confidently out into the road when suddenly he became very pale. His knees shook and he collapsed, and well he might, for the approaching car was the very one he had previously stolen. He sank down in a miserable heap in the road, murmuring to himself, "It's all over! It's all over!" The motor car drew slowly nearer, till at last he heard it stop just short of him. Two gentlemen got out and walked round the heap lying in the road, and one of them said, "Oh dear, here's a poor old thing, a washerwoman apparently, who has fainted in the road. Let us take her to the nearest village." They tenderly lifted Toad into the motor car and proceeded on their way. When Toad heard them talk so kindly, he cautiously opened first one eye and then the other. "Look," said one of the gentlemen, "she is better already. How do you feel now, ma'am?" "Thank you kindly, sir," said the Toad in a feeble voice. "I'm feeling a great deal better." "No, don't try to talk," said the gentleman. "I won't," said Toad. "I was only thinking if I might sit on the front seat there, beside the driver, where I could get the fresh air full in my face. I should soon be all right again." "What a sensible woman!" said the gentleman. "Of course you shall." So they helped Toad into the front seat beside the driver. Toad was now almost himself again. He sat up and tried to beat down the old cravings that rose up and took possession of him. "It is fate," he said to himself. "Why struggle?" And he turned to the driver at his side. "Please, sir," he said, "would you kindly let me try and drive the car? I should like to be able to tell my friends that I have had the privilege." The driver laughed at the proposal so heartily that the gentleman inquired what the matter was. When he heard, he said to Toad's delight, "I like your spirit. Let her have a try." Toad scrambled into the seat vacated by the driver, took the steering wheel in his hands, listened with affected humility to the instructions, and set the car in motion. The gentlemen behind applauded, and Toad heard them saying, "Fancy! A washerwoman driving a car as well as that, the first time." Toad went a little faster. He heard the gentleman call out warningly, "Be careful, washerwoman!" And this annoyed him, and he became angry. The driver tried to interfere, but the Toad made the car speed even faster. "Washerwoman, indeed!" he shouted recklessly. "I am the Toad who never escapes. Sit still, and you shall know what driving really is." With a cry of horror, the whole party rose and flung themselves on him. "Seize him!" they cried. Alas! They should have remembered to stop the motor car before attempting to seize Toad. With a turn of the wheel, the Toad sent the motor car crashing through a hedge. One mighty bounce, and the wheels of the car were churning up the thick mud of a horse pond. Toad found himself flying through the air. He eventually landed on his back in the soft grass of a meadow. Sitting up, he could just see the motor car in the pond. The gentleman and the driver were floundering in the water. He picked himself up and set off running across country as hard as he could. He ran till he was breathless and weary, and had to go at a slower pace. When he recovered his breath, he began to laugh. "Ho, ho!" he cried, in elation and self-admiration. "Toad, as usual, comes out on the top." Then he burst into song again. A slight noise at a distance behind him made him turn his head and look. Oh, horror! About 2 fields off, the chauffeur, or driver, and two large policemen were visible running towards him. Toad sprang to his feet and pelted away again. "Oh, my!" he gasped as he ran. "What a fool I am! What a conceited numpty!" Toad glanced back and saw that they were gaining on him. On he ran desperately. He did his best, but his legs were short. Ceasing to heed where he was going, he struggled on wildly, when suddenly the earth failed under his feet. The toad grasped at the air and splash! He found himself head over ears in deep water. He had run straight into the river. Toad rose to the surface and tried to grasp the reeds, but the stream was so strong that it tore them out of his hands. "Oh my!" gasped poor Toad. "If ever I steal a motor car again!" Then down he went and came up spluttering. Presently, he saw that he was approaching a big dark hole in the bank just above his head. As the stream bore past him, he reached up with a hand and caught hold of the edge. Then slowly he drew himself up out of the water till he was able to rest his elbows on the edge of the hole. As he stared before him in the dark hole, some bright small thing twinkled in its depths. As it approached, a face grew up gradually around it, and it was a familiar face, brown and small with whiskers. It was the water rat.